Okay, with that, I'm going to call this meeting of the Rhode Island Seafood Marketing Collaborative to order. My name is Bob Baloo, Assistant Director of DEM. I have the honor of serving as chair of the collaborative on behalf of acting DEM Director Gary Gray. Welcome to the shores of Narragansett Bay on this beautiful late fall afternoon. It's so nice to see everyone in person. It's become a rarity, albeit with masks on. It is a state policy that masks be worn during the entirety of the meeting, so thank you for your compliance with that. I'd just like to take a minute to introduce and welcome the members of the collaborative. I think almost all of whom are here today. We have at least one, I believe, unable to make it, Catherine Farrington, due to health reasons. She's feeling a bit under the weather, but I believe she is joining us via Zoom, and Nicole just confirmed that. But I believe the rest of the collaborative, with maybe one exception, is all here. I'm just going to run down the list, and you just want to raise your hands. We are recording the meeting, including a video feed. So I'll start out, and we'll do this alphabetically. Ken Ayers, Chief of the Division of Agriculture with DEM. Welcome, Ken. Matt Behan could not make it today. I think he is the only one absent. Azure Siegler is here. Hi, Azure. Coastal Research Associate for Fisheries and Aquaculture, URI Coastal Resources Center, and Extension Specialist RIC Grant, and clearly the one with the longest title. John Delgado could not make it. He sent his regrets. He's the seafood buyer and supervisor with Dave's Fresh Marketplace. The week before Thanksgiving is like the worst time for somebody like John Delgado. So he's just extremely busy, but he sent his regards. Kevin DeLibero is here. Hi, Kevin. Director of Culinary Arts with the Newport Restaurant Group. Catherine Farrington, as I mentioned, is joining us via Zoom. Vice President of Marketing with Discover Newport. Ben Getch is here. Hi, Ben. Agriculture Coordinator with the Rhode Island Coastal Resources Management Council. Tom DeFazzi is here. Hi, Tom. Sales and Purchasing Manager, Narragansett Bay Lobsters. Fred Matera, Executive Director, Commercial Fisheries Center of Rhode Island. Mike McGivney, President of the Rhode Island Shell Fishermen's Association. Stu Meltzer, owner and operator of Fearless Fish Market. Scott Olszewski, Deputy Chief, DEM Division of Marine Fisheries. Lori Krabarnik, Adjunct Associate Professor with the URI Food Safety Research Center. Barry Ratso, shellfish farmer and owner-operator of the Tuna Oyster Bar. John Riondo, I've only known him for 20 years, and I'm still getting your name. Business Development Executive, Rhode Island Commerce Corporation. Dr. Hiro Uchida, Professor and Chair, URI Department of Environmental and Natural Resource Economics. And last but not least, Kathy White, Supervising Environmental Health Food Specialist, Center for Food Protection, Rhode Island Department of Health. Next time we'll go in reverse alphabetical order. And you're so unfair. Your names are at the bottom of the alphabet. We are also joined by a number of partners from throughout Rhode Island's commercial fishing and seafood industry, both in person here today in the back of the room and via Zoom. So welcome everyone. Indeed, this is a hybrid meeting, in person combined with remote access, enhanced by a video feed. So we really have it all going on here today. I really want to thank my DEM colleagues sitting to my right, Nicole Langell Costa, Principal Biologist with our Division of Marine Fisheries, who has such versatile skills, including the ability to orchestrate all of the technology we're using today for our meetings. So thank you so much, Nicole. She's really a pleasure to work with. It's amazing how she puts this all together in such short order. So I'd like to start off by introducing Dr. Jason McNamee, Deputy Director for Natural Resources with DEM, for some opening remarks. Jason.
Thanks, Bob. Hi, everybody. I know a lot of you, but not everyone, so hi. Nice to see everyone. So my name is Jason McNamee. I'm here on behalf of Director Terry Gray, DEM Director Terry Gray. I'm the Deputy Director, and that's for DEM's Bureau of Natural Resources. I've been in that role for about a year and a half, no more than a year and a half at this point. Prior to that, I was the Chief of DEM's Marine Fisheries Program. So I've got a little bit of background, or maybe a lot of background in marine fisheries. In both my new and former roles, I've been interested in advancing the priorities and interests of our commercial fishing and seafood processing industries in many ways. And that includes what we're going to talk about today, marketing and promotion. And so those aspects will lead to the important role played by the collaborative you all here today. I've not been directly involved in the work of the collaborative, although there was a short little stint right when the collaborative was first developed. I went to a couple of meetings. I don't know that. I think some of you were on it back then, so a little bit of a role back then, but then I pitched it over to Scott. He's been there ever since. But I've been tracking the collaborative progress over the past, it's been about 10 years now. I've been really impressed with all that's been accomplished. And we just wanted to let you know, the director and I, moving forward, we'll remain in close coordination with Bob and the entire DEM team that's involved with the collaborative to help support the programs and activities undertaken on behalf of the collaborative. So now we get to the fortune of our great state to have been awarded Salt Kennedy grant. That was accepted by DEM on behalf of the collaborative. This is going to support a well-funded, comprehensive statewide Rhode Island seafood marketing and promotion campaign for 2022. That's going to be rolled out today. It's the primary agenda item for this meeting, and that's, I think I'll invite Pete to give a few opening remarks. So that's a huge achievement. I don't know how much folks know about the Salt Kennedy program. I'm going to talk a little bit about it here in a minute, but it's super competitive, and over the years, as a fishery scientist, I've submitted countless proposals to the SK grant. Not one of them was ever picked up, so I think it's pretty amazing. So congratulations to Bob and to all of you on this really impressive achievement. It's great. So a little bit about the SK program itself. It's steeped in history. It stems from the Salt Kennedy Act of 1954, and that established the first of its kind program to provide financial support for research and development of commercial fisheries. It's a really important program. The act was named after Senator Leverett Saltonstall, who served 6 years as governor of Massachusetts and then 22 years as a senator from Massachusetts, and Senator John F. Kennedy, who served 8 years as a senator before becoming the 35th president. So Bob and I had a little exchange meeting. We both assumed it was Ted Kennedy and not John F. Kennedy. So both Bob and I were excited when we found it was John F. Kennedy. So the Salt Kennedy Act created the Salt Kennedy Fund. I'm just going to say that from here on out, just so you know what I'm talking about. This finance is financed by a permanent appropriation of a portion of import duties on marine products. So that's where money comes from. I didn't know that, so that others might know as well. Over the years, the SK Fund has supported grant opportunities to address the wide-ranging needs of the U.S. fishing industry, including but not limited to advancing fisheries science, as well as supporting harvesting, processing, marketing, and all sorts of infrastructure research. As I mentioned, the grants are recognized as being among the most highly competitive and difficult to get. So that underscores the significance of the award provided to Rhode Island. What we asked for and what we ended up receiving was the maximum amount available, which is $300,000. So we maxed it right out. The award is based wholly on the groundwork laid by this group, so congratulations again on the job well done. So now, what you're reading about today comes the important part, implementing the program. I, as the director, we have full confidence in Bob's leadership, the collaborative's oversight and guidance, and the support of DEM and the many partners in our fishing, farming, and seafood community. The program you're about to launch will succeed in boosting the consumption and value of Rhode Island seafood seafood in Rhode Island, thereby strengthening our local seafood economy and our local food system. So, as I sort of alluded to a minute ago, I'm a gigantic fan of John F. Kennedy. It's kind of in a handbook when you're an American with Irish heritage, you're obligated to be a big fan of John F. Kennedy. And so, in Bob's research on the history of the grant, drummed up this quote from JFK, and I wanted to share it because I think it still rings true today as it did back in 1956, which was when it actually made the quote. So I'm quoting JFK: "We must continue to provide appropriate action on certain needs of our fishing industry, which that industry cannot be expected to meet on its own, including the financing of vessel construction, loans to processing plants, and the promulgation of vessel and individual insurance. We cannot imagine New England without its fishing fleet, its bustling fishing piers and markets, its traditions of the sea. But they will require action, not veneration, in view of their current problems of price and import competition." These challenges are with us today still. And this SK grant is going to help us meet JFK's vision for our little piece of New England. So with that, thank you all for giving me a moment to speak with you. Good luck to all of you, and I'm going to turn it back to Bob to take you through the agenda. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Jason. Really appreciate it. All right, so let's jump right into the agenda. Item 1 on the agenda is, or actually item 2, is the agenda itself. Any recommended changes to the draft agenda? Seeing none, any objections to approving the agenda as proposed? Seeing none, the agenda as proposed stands approved by consent, and we're on to item 3, which is meeting minutes. These are the minutes from the last meeting of the collaborative held on June 30th, 2021. Are there any recommended changes to the meeting minutes? I know we had one, Lori, you do want to make sure that that question mark was removed from the meeting minutes.
My name was really there.
But you were there.
I was there.
So we will ensure that the minutes are clarified to reflect that Lori Kovarnik is present. Any other recommended changes to the meeting minutes? Seeing none, any objection to approving the minutes as proposed? Seeing none, the minutes as proposed stand approved by consent. And we're on to item 4, which is Rhode Island landings. So everything we do and plan to do to promote and market Rhode Island seafood hinges on the availability of Rhode Island seafood. That's a pretty straightforward comment or sentence, but it's pretty apropos. We have an impressive fishery and a regular agenda, and as a regular agenda item, I like the idea of providing the collaborative with updates on Rhode Island landings. We've done that a few times in the past. As you can see, I'm trying to continue it as a theme. And for that purpose, I'm going to turn the floor over to my colleague, Scott Olszewski, Deputy Chief with DEM's Division of Marine Fisheries, for a brief presentation. Scott, you can do it from there if that's okay with you.
Hi, everybody. Pretty friendly introductions. You haven't met me yet. My name is Scott Olszewski. I'm with Rhode Island DEM's Division of Marine Fisheries. Division of Marine Fisheries is charged with the conservation, management, protection of the state's marine resources. What we mainly do is we participate in a number of fishery management councils, interstate fisheries management commissions in order to best manage fisheries so that consumers have fishery products available at any given time. So what I'm going to briefly talk about is some of the work that the division has been working with, some of the programs that we've been working on. Next slide, please. So the main thing that we've been working on this past year is a Rhode Island Annual Fisheries Report. And what this is, it's not ready for prime time quite yet, but it's coming soon. And the idea is that it would be, next slide, please. So the purpose of the report is part of an annual series describing the state of Rhode Island's fishing industry starting in 2020. So it's a relatively new process, a new concept. We had some reports in the past, but this is dedicated solely towards marine fisheries landings. The data provided shed light on the value of the fleet's contribution to the Rhode Island economy and coastal culture, as well as fisheries performance relative to previous years. Next slide. So the content of the report generally is, again, this annual analysis of commercial fisheries landings and value information. It's intended to inform the public and the collaborative of ground seafood harvest on an annual basis in no particular order. It has things like top species by value. It also has effort metrics in terms of fishing trips taken by gear type as well as licenses issued for that annual harvest by species. There's some additional information in there, such as, I just use a couple of examples, one being how dramatically landings were affected by COVID-19 in 2020, and we saw a 27% reduction in landings overall. There's other components to the report, such as recreational fishing activity. I know it's not directly relevant to this group. It kind of is in terms of some of the programs that we've talked about in the past, such as boat or ocean to table concepts where people could use for hire fisheries to go out, harvest, pick, catch, come in, have a participating restaurant that therefore goes and processes and catches and cooks their catch for them. So there's some important information in there, although it is recreational nature. So besides the report, what we've been keeping up with is this weekly landings information. It's available on the DEM website, and you can see the website address right on the top there. It's really kind of a neat concept. A lot of people are probably already familiar with it. It has a number of species on it, and it's a weekly landing report. So what it does is it gives you general information on species, the amount of harvest that took place in that given week, and then therefore allows the consumer to pick and choose more or less of species that might be on the market for them to purchase. So it's a really great tool that we've been keeping up with. And this is just a snapshot of one of the pages. So if you go to the website, it'll drop down to probably 8 or 10 different species that have been landed locally in this past week. A little bit of information on them. So in addition to that, I just wanted to give a little update of 2021 year-to-date status and trends. So far in 2021, we've landed 70 million pounds of seafood worth over $91 million. And just listed there are 10 species, the top 10 species, I should say, by value, 2021 so far. You can see the obvious players, sea scallops being one of the more lucrative fisheries that Rhode Island participates in, as well as short-fin squid, American lobster, and the others that follow. Next slide, please. This is just the last slide. It's just a graphical representation that'll be part of the monitoring report, so people will be able to go in at any time instead of coming directly to the division or division staff and inquiring or asking for information on specific landings information. This will be accessible to everyone on an annual basis. That's really all I have. I'd be happy to take some questions. Anybody have it?
Any questions for Scott? Brett?
Scott, scallops landed. It's not just scallops that are from the port when it's all scallops that landed from other states as well, right?
This should be just landed in Rhode Island.
So it's landed in Rhode Island from other state vessels.
Yeah, well, it could be from federal waters, especially federal landing that I won't put Dan on the spot, but I think they do have a lot of transient vessels that come and fish outside Rhode Island and then land in the port. So I think that's what generates the majority of these landings.
Ben, did I see your hand?
I'm just wondering how you determine the pricing value, is it wholesale, is it retail, is it where did that information come from?
It comes from the dealer report, so it would be wholesale price. I think it's the value that the product is worth, ex vessel price.
And if I might, I just want to note that farmed oysters are now being reported into the safest data system, and as a result, they are reflected or will be reflected in this weekly summary. So that will be those are the species that we're reporting, even though they differ from the wild harvest. Okay.
Well, that answers one question earlier, and you also show on the metrics catch compared to quota.
In the report, I guess the report is incomplete at this time, so it's still
The final result. And when I look at R, well, I know that you pick quota or is it capture quota?
don't know if we have that currently, but I'll take the advice. I think that would be a useful useful metric to have based on some of our fisheries do. I think I understand what you're getting at. It would be important to look at that because some of the fisheries that would affect market availability, certain things that we reach quota sub periods throughout the year. There are times that there aren't fish available on the market because the quota has been met in a given sub period. So I think that would be a good addition to the quota.
Other questions for Scott? Seeing none, thanks so much, Scott.
Great, thanks.
Item 5 on our agenda is the flagship item for today's meeting. With great pride and excitement, today we are rolling out our Rhode Island Seafood Marketing Program for 2022, which promises to be bigger and more effective than anything we've done over the past 10 years, thanks to the awarding of a $300,000 SK grant to support the program. I'm now going to walk through the program. I've got a handful of slides. I'm going to guess it's going to take me 20 minutes or so. I am game to pause the presentation, my presentation at any point to take questions, but I just want to let you know that I'm going to provide ample time at the end for questions and for a roundtable discussion. So, again, handle it as you see fit. And that pertains as well to the folks on Zoom. Nicole has given everyone the ability to unmute themselves, and I'm just going to, we're an informal group, so if anyone at any point has a question, say a burning question, if you're in the room, raise your hand. If you're online, try to raise your hand using the raise hand feature, or if you really just want to blurt something out, go ahead, we'll hear you. So thank you for that. So with that, I'm going to launch into my presentation. This is a presentation on our new program for 2022, and the title of the grant that was approved is Realizing the Full Potential of Rhode Island Seafood in Rhode Island, to be administered by DEM on behalf of this group, the Rhode Island Seafood Marketing Collaborative. Support is provided, as noted several times, but we can't say this enough because we're so appreciative of a $300,000 SK grant from NOAA Fisheries. Staff support for the program is being provided by DEM and Rhode Island Commerce. I know Julie Stomasic is very much on board. I don't think she's here yet today, but I know she's planning to be. She's had a busy day. I've been on calls with her all day. But Julie and I know John as well are willing to offer their support along with the whole DEM team. And of course, we're going to get, or anticipate, volunteer support from partners throughout the Rhode Island seafood community. All right, this is my sort of opportunity to do a little soapbox. So I'm going to get up on my soapbox and just talk about why the program is so significant. There really are a number of reasons. I'd say first, it hits at the heart of who we are. We're the ocean state, and we're all about our marine heritage, and commercial fishing and seafood are at the core of that heritage and serve as long-standing, solid sectors of our state's economy. You can make the point that there's nothing more Rhode Island than fresh local seafood, and often we do make that point, and we're now able to sort of operationalize that. In reality, however, most Rhode Island seafood leaves the state as exports, and most seafood consumed in Rhode Island comes from out of state as imports. Our local in-state market, seafood market, is thus upside down. Exports of Rhode Island seafood are very important and valuable and will remain so. However, the relatively small amount of Rhode Island seafood sold and consumed in Rhode Island calls attention to the need and opportunity to grow the in-state market and render it more secure, more right side up, if you will. To do that, we need to stimulate local demand. Doing so will incentivize the redirect of local supply, in turn shortening the seafood supply chain and rendering our local food system more sustainable and secure. And here's the thing, it's such an easy sell, or at least it should be. Who doesn't love Rhode Island seafood? Who in Rhode Island, if given the option, would opt for imported seafood over fresh local seafood, just harvested and landed, just harvested or grown and landed from local waters by Rhode Island fishermen or Rhode Island shellfish farmers at our local Rhode Island ports. Some might opt for the imported seafood, and that's okay, but many would prefer to buy local, and that's what we're looking to seize upon. Again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with imported seafood. I happen to be a big fan of salmon and both shrimp, but fresh local seafood has a bit of an edge in the marketplace, or at least it should. So there is huge room for growth. Big, sweeping opportunities to bolster sales and consumption of Rhode Island seafood in Rhode Island, in turn increasing in-state sales and the value of those sales, spurring growth of our local seafood economy and supporting a stronger, more resilient food system that is less dependent on less reliable out-of-state sources. And to boot, shorter supply chains or food miles also have smaller carbon footprints, thereby helping to mitigate the impacts of climate change. So, okay, I'm going to step off my soapbox. I'm done. But I couldn't help that, taking the opportunity to kind of espouse why there are some of the many good reasons why I think we're about to move forward in a very significant way. So against that backdrop and based on that rationale, I now present the outline of our upcoming 2022 program. So, the overarching goals and objectives, very straightforward and compelling. It's to increase the value of Rhode Island seafood by increasing awareness, consumption, and demand for Rhode Island seafood in Rhode Island. Our strategy, with some budget figures next to it, is really in two parts. The first part, shown on this slide, is to enact a robust, comprehensive statewide seafood marketing and promotion program involving the following key elements. First, use of the Rhode Island Seafood logo, the SeafoodRI.com website, the Seafood RI Facebook page, and the Fish Line phone app as major unifying elements. And you can see some dollar figures drawn from the grant that are sort of linked to each of these components. Bringing on a dedicated, full-time, year-round contractual position person to serve as key support for the program. New content development and design work. The development of harvester profiles. The development of the next two are really the biggies. The development of a comprehensive multimedia plan in accordance with undertaking major media buys. Those two combined are over about $180,000 of the grant going to planning for and buying media. Retailer and donator support and consumer education, funds built in for that component. Attendance at seafood fairs and festivals and seafood sales venues, supplies and travel. I'm going to be going back over these in a minute, but I just wanted to, in one slide, kind of summarize what are the key elements that we applied for and got funding for, so you can see how this will sort of come together and hopefully roll out. So that's part one. Part two, it's a short slide, but it's an important one, and that is an evaluation of the effectiveness of the program. This may be one of the first times ever that federal funds have been provided to boost a seafood marketing program with a sister component to test the effectiveness of that investment. We're going to be talking about that in detail in a few minutes. But that's the second part of the two-part strategy that we're about to undertake. So what I've done, and you can move to the next module, next slide, thank you, is that I've sort of chunked out the program into 4 modules, or building blocks, essentially constituting our initial work plan. I'm just going to tick through those right now. Module 1, we're hiring. In order to build the capacity we need to administer a comprehensive, top-notch program, we're looking to bring on board a dedicated, DEM is looking to bring on board a dedicated, full-time, year-round contractual position. The person hired will assist with the development, coordination, and implementation of all aspects of this program, will serve as a primary point of contact for all Rhode Island seafood dealers, provide point of sale support, promote Rhode Island seafood at Rhode Island seafood events and Rhode Island seafood sales venues. We're about to post the position. It's actually going to be posted to the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission. It's a way of expediting a contractual hire, and the paperwork is moving through quite well on that, and I would expect within a week or two, I think we're that close to being able to post the position with the expectation that we would fill it by January 1. The pay will be $35,000 plus full benefits. The ideal candidate would be someone with skills and experience in content development, media design, marketing, communications, website development and maintenance, social media and program coordination, a good communicator with strong interpersonal and writing skills, familiar with our local marine fisheries and seafood industry, highly motivated, ready to hit the ground running. So if you know anyone that meets these criteria, please send them my way. We're really looking to get a top-notch person. I have a feeling there's a lot of folks out there who this might appeal to, and this is, I think, a great opportunity mutually for the person hired and for all of us looking to get as much as we can from this program to come up with a great match. So I kind of awkward to call that module 1, but in my mind, that is module 1. I want to get this person hired and on board ASAP so we can hit the ground running on January 1. The second module is the use of the Rhode Island Seafood logo, the Seafood RI website, the Rhode Island Seafood Facebook page, and the Fish Line phone app as the major unifying elements for the program. The aim is to fully integrate all opportunities to access Rhode Island seafood in Rhode Island via these 4 main platforms. As an initial step, there is a need to undertake some regulatory reform, namely modifications on the use of the logo, so it better serves as an ambassador for Rhode Island seafood. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the meeting, but I just want to prime that issue so you know that the logo is going to be front and center, but if things go as I anticipate, there'll be a logo subject to a modified set of regulations. The logo is aimed at serving as a common theme for media and marketing, and as a tool for distinguishing and promoting Rhode Island seafood in the marketplace. Our Seafood RI website, which is already very well established and robust, will be made even more so through this program. It will be maintained and enhanced to provide the digital home center for the marketing campaign, and importantly, it will provide links to all content from all partners. I'm well aware that there is so much great content out there. I'm just thinking right off the top of my head, Rhode Island Sea Grant is a case in point. We want to be able to have all strings sort of tied in and then tie back out to the great content that's already existing. There's no point in reinventing the wheel, but this would be a way to integrate and ensure that the Rhode Island seafood community, particularly consumers, have access to all the information that they should have access to in a convenient way, an integrated way. And I just want to note that Rhode Island seafood map that Abby Green worked on, I think for you, Azure, is already on the website and already, I think, a fantastic tool that we would look to. So we're basically taking all the tools in the toolbox and looking to kind of massage them and make them as effective as we possibly can. We're not starting from scratch. We're taking what we have and we're going to make it even better. Our third module is media. And really, it's the big player, if you will, in terms of the funding that we receive, because this is the part that we were never able to do. We've done so much over the past 10 years, but we never had the funds to do the big buys. Now we do. So there's basically 3 parts to our media module, if you will. The first is content development and production. We've got about $18,000 available via contract, and to be determined who that money might go to. This would be largely for photos and videos, both creating and producing new and curating existing. Again, no point in redoing anything. I've seen incredible videos that are out there right now that we want to basically, with permission of course, pull in and make available. And by the way, these are subsets of the 18K, so 15,000 dedicated for that, and then harvester profiles, which I think are a really awesome opportunity for consumers to get to know their harvester. Is a project that we plan to partner with the Commercial Fisheries Center of Rhode Island. We actually have 3 parts of our program as approved by NOAA through the grant process that involve a collaboration with the Commercial Fisheries Center of Rhode Island and one is this one here, harvester profiles. Next is the development of a comprehensive multimedia plan. As much as $27.5 thousand for this, which would be contractual, and would be to hire a media firm to develop a plan that would include, and not necessarily all of these, but certainly look to include paid social media, online display and video, influencer marketing, out of home, radio, and TV. Some key aspects. Some key aspects of the plan that we plan to pursue. So it's getting a little wonky, but I just want to let you know how what we're going to be seeking when we go to contract with the firm that will be doing this planning is the use of broad-reaching media tactics to reach as many adults as possible, adults in Rhode Island as possible, to drive awareness, as well as the use of targeted media tactics to hone in on key seafood buying audiences and sales venues and priority species to drive awareness and sales. At least one paid media tactic in the market over the entire year to stay top of mind, and then other tactics to run in more condensed time frames based on seasonality, with priority for all of the above given to visual media. So that is something that we're going to be looking to move forward on ASAP. Will likely be drawn. In fact, we have to draw from the master price agreement. This is DEM that will reach out to a media firm in Rhode Island that's on the master price agreement, try to find a good match and get them on board ASAP. Other aspects of the media plan would include earned media, public service announcements, and of course integrating in what we've already been talking about. We already have on hand our website, free social, the Fishline app. So we want this to be a well-integrated, comprehensive plan, and that's what we're going to be seeking. And then, of course, the big ticket item, the actual buys. So once we have that plan, once we have it really well thought out, how best to target your funds, then we pump the system with the funding to, and that would be administered by the same firm in accordance with the plan. But again, it's the ability to actually pay for the TV, pay for the radio, pay for the print ads, pay for what needs to be paid for in a strategic prioritized way. Next. Our fourth module is retailer, and I've thrown in donator because that really has become an increasingly important parameter. Support and consumer education. This is kind of a hybrid, but I think it kind of ties together well. I hope you agree. There's really no better opportunity to support and promote Rhode Island seafood than at seafood sales venues. So we plan to focus a good chunk of our program on point of sale retailer support. That can and probably should include support for the growing seafood donation programs as well, as mentioned. So here's some parts, if you will, to what I mean by this module, or what is intended to be addressed by this module. First of all, support to all retailers, and I mean all retailers, selling Rhode Island seafood in Rhode Island, as well as institutions and services providing Rhode Island seafood. Already benefiting via the promotion from the media plan that I just referred to, that is getting consumers to the venues in the first place, and then as well offering point-of-sale support in the form of picks or display cases to kind of differentiate the Rhode Island seafood. Banners, hats, shirts, placemats, the kind of tchotchkes that folks love, and I think are a great way to sort of serve as with the seafood logo, of course, Rhode Island seafood logo prominently featured to help emphasize that this is what this campaign is all about. It's really calling attention to Rhode Island seafood. I think the nice compliment is pushing awareness and education for consumers once they've already arrived, once they're already there at the venues, and considering their purchases. So we're really helping to steer them in the right direction. With educational materials, graph cards that we'll develop, the harvester profiles that I've already mentioned, and bumper stickers, which now seems passe. Magnets, I think, might be the nice replacement for that. I have this thought that, a year from now, we will be driving around with their I Love Rhode Island Seafood magnet on the back of the car. We'll see how well that goes. But I think we can invest in those kinds of products now. We have the funds to do it. We can make them available to consumers, and I think that can help spur their economic choices. With regard to harvester profiles, there is a strong preference on the part of seafood consumers to access seafood from known sources, particularly local fishermen and farmers whose picture and business operation is associated with the product. People want to support their local harvesters, and so this is the way to do that by kind of personalizing the product, if you will. So you can see we have 17,000 allocated for supplies and travel for this module. The fifth and final module, I think I said 4. If I did, I meant to say 5. So this is the fifth and final module under our sort of work plan for the year, and that's attendance at seafood fairs and festivals and seafood sales venues. No more captive audience, those folks who are already there, so we want to take advantage of that with staffing, table and display, and the availability of promotional and educational materials. We're looking to partner with the Commercial Fisheries Center of Rhode Island on this. And again, as already noted, we have funds dedicated for supplies and travel to support that. So in a nutshell, or in 5 nutshells, that's how I see this program unfolding. I'm going to be sort of moving forward with these 5 modules in mind. It's the only way I can sort of stay organized here to kind of keep track of these different parts and hopefully have them seamlessly integrated into one really strong, powerful program. And I'll be looking to you, and we'll be talking about this more in a bit, as to your thoughts on how best to move forward. But that's my summary of part 1. And for part 2, I have the pleasure of turning things over to Dr. Hiro Uchida from URI, who's going to speak about the evaluation study portion of the project. Hiro.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Again, my name is Hiro Uchida. I'm URI, the Environmental and Resource Economics Department. And so this part is not so exciting as SMART, but it will be interesting if we can pull this off in a reasonable manner. So we like to know, so these are the hypotheses that we like to test. In other words, whether that stands as truth or not. And so one is this marketing promotion has increased the in-state consumption of Rhode Island seafood, and that is the first, maybe foremost objective or goal of this project. But somewhat related to that, the hypothesis number 2 is also looking at whether this promotion has increased the overall demand for Rhode Island seafood, and that includes the fish that would be exported out of the state as well. There's no reason for this campaign to be contained within the state, even though that is the first formal objective. So we like to kind of see whether this promotion has also increased overall demand that includes the exports. Next slide, please. So to do this, we like to track the sales through year 22. That is when the campaign will be ongoing. And for the in-state consumption change, the hypothesis number 1, we are seeking the participants from the retailer and restaurants, and basically the endpoint with consumers points to collect some of the sales data and what species were sold. So in our proposal, we mentioned that we like to focus on 9 categories of these venues, ranging from direct sales, shellfish farmers, down to restaurants and even institutional buyers, including the URI dining service, for example. And for the purpose of keeping the data confidential, we like to get at least 3 participants from all the area, and to provide us with the information, again, through the 2022. I think this may be the point where I distribute this little handout that I have here. One of the key things I'm kind of seeking some input from you all today is whether this letter intended for it's on the both sides. You have printed one with the other is the law has distributed. It's the same thing. On one side, there's a letter for the retailers that's pictured at the very top. On the back side, it's the dealers that submitted. So one thing I'd like to ask for your advice is, whether this letter looks appealing or doesn't offend anybody in any way. And also, the data that we like to get is kind of listed here, and whether this is feasible, this is way too much, or the possibility, etc. You can sort of have that discussion maybe afterwards, but this is for your reference. And there it is up there too. So primarily, we like to collect the data on the sales of one species, whether there was more animal seafood or not, each species, the volume, and the price if possible, kind of gauge on the overall the market response maybe to the campaign. Now, as you see in the letter, we're also hoping to get the data prior to 2022, we need it before, not just after the campaign. And this is where I don't know how well each of the restaurants or the retailers have readily available, or one, is it readily available, and two, whether they will share that with us for the past year's sales data so we can compare before and after. But all that we can discuss more in detail later on. Left slide and next one. So similar to the first one, but now we want to look at the overall demand for the Rhode Island seafood, and this is where we are seeking help from the dealers. So they're the ones who get the fish to the boat and then potentially, distributing fish that goes within the state and those to the people outside of the state. The data we are asking is very similar, species, and sales, and volume. But for this one, rather than focusing on all around Atlantic seafood, which would be too much, we decided to focus on the three species. Like a typical, bellwether species. Now, if you remember, perhaps, in the proposal we only said two. But things have changed over time, and Bob and I and that team discussed a little bit, and we thought that maybe having three species will have a good coverage, and they may be able to capture if there's any changes in the demand for the Rhode Island seafood, overall global demand for the Rhode Island seafood. So, both of that sea bass, stock, and next slide, please. And so we're looking for volunteers. You can spread the word. You can nominate yourself, or you can give us some suggestions on who might be interested in participating and who we should be contacting. You can, bring that to me directly, or I send an email to that dedicated email address that you have now in your line for this project. And before I forget, I'm not the one who's doing it. Actually, Victoria Hill is the student helping on this project, and also Natalie sitting behind her. I told her to come on so two students will be helping us this year. They hopefully have to help out too. Victoria is an undergraduate student, by the way, so I'm really excited about that. And Natalie is a first year PhD student who I am helping her heavily in my classes, but also looking to help her so that we can help in this project. Interesting very well. Anyway, so if you have any suggestions after this meeting, please contact this email or just get to me directly. But I really hope to have this better look at it and get your feedback on it. And also, if you are inclined to take it and give it to someone you might know, we have the color nicer version, a single-sided picture will there as well. So these are also available here.
So I think what I'll do is I'll just finish. I only have 3 more slides. I'll finish out my portion, sort of part 2. Now I'll finish out with part 3, and then we'll open it up. And I definitely want to kind of have an open discussion, including questions for Dr. Hiro and Dr. Uchida and his team. But let me just finish out the presentation. That way we'll be able to just kind of lean back and have use the rest of the meeting for the most part for roundtable discussion. So just to kind of finish off the overarching the overview of the program, administration of the program, I have the honor of leading it, but I'm doing so, and I really can't emphasize this enough, on behalf of and in coordination with this group. So I take your recommendations and advice, I will be taking your recommendations and advice to heart. That's the purpose of today's meeting and our ongoing efforts over the year. I also am looking to establish an advisory committee. I'll be talking about that a little bit more in the next slide. Staffing resources that earlier noted are being provided by DEM, and that includes a new contract position. Our key collaborators are the Commercial Fisheries Center of Rhode Island and University of Rhode Island as well. And of course, volunteer support and participation from a range of partners throughout Rhode Island's commercial fishing and seafood industry. This is the network, if you will, of personnel that is going to hopefully pull this off. Next slide speaks to next steps, two of which are essentially being achieved as we speak. The first is this meeting today, where we're rolling it out. The second is a news release that I believe the only reason why Mike Healy, our Director of Communications at DEM, is not here is because he's working on the finishing touches of a draft release that I have here in my hand. That is, I think, quite impressive, and that's going to be rolling out today. So this is going to become a newsworthy item thanks to this release, but which includes, by the way, the full support from the governor and the entire congressional delegation. So very happy to be able to check both of those boxes. Next, and as Dr. Uchida just mentioned, is to solicit industry participants for the URI evaluation of project effectiveness. Next is to post and fill the full-time contract position. Then to set up the advisory group and start the meeting monthly. I say then, these are probably all going to happen more or less simultaneously. But the next one is to enter into contracts for, I sort of broke this out into the three chunks, the media planning and media buys. Of course, that's to be determined. We haven't done that yet, but that's about what we're going to do via the DEM purchasing process. Two, contracting for content development and design work. And then three, contracting with the Commercial Fisheries Center of Rhode Island to advance the fish line phone app, harvester profiles, and to support attendance at seafood fairs and festivals, and then, of course, to purchase all the supplies that will support the program. And my last slide is an advisory committee slide, and I think with apologies to one person who I haven't actually talked to, whose name is up here, Ezra Siegler, I took the liberty as her availing your name, and I apologize if you write down. I doubt you feel offended. So, but the other team members have all already agreed. The key here is that it's an open membership process. I don't want this to be a limited or restricted group that are meeting in some corner. This is going to be an open advisory committee process. We'll do it in a hybrid way where we'll have an in-person meeting as well as accessible via Zoom. We'll try and do it once a month. I think it's important to keep that monthly routine, monthly schedule certainly for starters, and then maybe as we get deep into the program, we can spread that out a little bit more. But initially, it'll be monthly meetings with 4 members being all of the DEM team there, who you see listed, as well as Julie Slomasic from the Rhode Island Commerce Corporation, also with DEM. Julie had recommended, and to be determined, but a marketing and tourism expert from Rhode Island Commerce. Fred Butero and Sher Mooney, I guess I didn't actually ask you guys yet, but since you're collaborators, I just kind of looped you in by default almost. Dr. Uchida, Victoria, and Natalie, who you've already met and know well now. Azure Sigler, who I think you all know well. Kate Masery, your mask on it. Eating with the Ecosystem, and David Dadikian, who may be on Zoom, I think he is, have all agreed to serve already. And this could grow if others are interested. So I just want to let you know, if you're interested, let me know. You don't have to do so at this moment. Just ping me via email or give me a call. I will be putting out meeting notices. We'll probably start, I'm not sure if we'll start in December or January, but probably December. Try to pull one off if we can before the holidays, just to kind of go over things and make sure we're ready to go. But this is going to be a key forum. And then this group will continue to meet quarterly to serve as the oversight body for the entire program. And we'll be giving updates at every meeting. It will be the main agenda item, and that's how I see this role. So I am finally going to take a deep breath and lean back and open the floor to questions and discussion. What I'd like to do, because I know, Victoria, you might need to run to a class if I'm not mistaken. So let's start with Dr. Uchida's evaluation study proposal. I'd like to open the floor to questions, comments, thoughts directed toward Dr. Uchida. I just want to note, it's actually ironic that there's a gap between us. That actually works well. Whatever information is being sought and collected by Dr. Uchida and his team will be something that we don't know about. It will be confidential data. So this is something that really is a separation, figuratively and literally, between DEM and URI on this aspect of the project. It's the only way to make it work. And so with that, I just want to turn the floor back over to Dr. Uchida to take any questions or comments. Lori?
Here are just a couple suggestions, whatever. So it mostly has to do with the seafood retail. So you asked for volunteers for Rhode Island retail seafood industry. I'm not sure that's what you mean. I think it's not the seafood industry, it's the retail sector, which is it could be a supermarket for so. The other question I have is sales data for Rhode Island seafood. I think you need to put some sort of definition around that. So, unless you have a plan to do that, because you want people to evaluate the same things. So, what is Rhode Island seafood, which of course is always a problem that we have, but you've got to ask them to look at the same stuff. So, they're going to ask, I'm sure, well, what's Rhode Island seafood? So, I think you have to make that decision up front, maybe, and give them a heads up, and the same in non-Rhode Island. What do you want? I mean, I look at that, I'm not sure. And the other, I mentioned about the getting pre-data. So I know this is due to kick in right away in 2022, but you're still going to have, I'm going to guess, maybe a 3 to 4 month lag where some of this stuff isn't going to roll out. So my suggestion is don't go beforehand because you're going to get a real pushback on that. There's a lot of extra work that you really want to do. But if you do it up front, maybe the first quarter, without any of this stuff bumping into it to hurt your design, maybe get that information that you want. I mean, there may be thought of that already, I don't know. You may be able to get that information that you want without making them look back. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, that's one thing I was always get some feelings about from folks here who are actually trying to do.
Well, that's an option. And then the last piece, I just have a question on the Rhode Island seafood dealers. We're looking at 3 species. I'm not sure how to ask this question. Do you want to make sure that anybody you solicit does all 3 of them? So you put, the reason why I asked you to put this out the way it is, whoever you're trying to solicit might say, well, I don't do this one, so I can't. So, clarify. That's all I'm saying.
In terms of Rhode Island seafood, I was more on the definition of the logos and how that was defined in that context, which is simply landing Rhode Island. So maybe 5 vessels that we will be landing in Rhode Island port. So any seafood that definition has its logo attached to it.
And that makes sense to me, but if this is what you're going to use,
Right.
this is what it needs to be, something needs to be part of the materials.
Just so that I have some clarity as well, this is what is in my interpretation here. So, are you saying you just like to have 5 dealers, shoreside dealers? Or are you looking at, like, still, who owns a retail market in the city? Are you looking at, at the day, these different individuals? Are you looking at restaurants? Are you looking at a multitude? If you are, in order to do a fair evaluation, especially on price, and when we're speaking of price, you have to do it 2 ways. You have to have what the dealer is going to give you as the X vessel price, which is what Megan brought up, and then, what is the market price? And that's going to differ from city, region, and this state. What's going on in Newport and Barrington is a lot different than what's going on in Central Falls and North Providence.
So you're definitely right. So for the retailers, out of it, we like to have some, I would say, representative of the state, some variation. Now, you And for the retailers, we're looking at the market price as opposed to investment. Primarily because we're looking at how the Rhode Island consumer responded to it. And not just whether they bought it, but what their price. So for that, we're focusing on for the dealer side, which we're looking at specifically on the three species and how the demand, not just for in-state consumption, but for out-state consumption, that's what we're looking at the dealers for part of the supply chain. I think the dealers that originally was captured from the digital sent outside. I know there might be a few down the road supply chain that when it starts to go outside. How do you walk to the and some of that feeling of how much demand within and outside at the dealers support. And because of that, I think the international price will still be, we're interested in changing price, not so much the level of price. The changing price, people are changing price as a result of this marketing campaign. So as long as we're tracking the same price, whether that's the next vessel or market price, we should be covered. We're interested in expecting to change the price. But for the retailers, we look at market price and dealers.
But remember that dealers pay an excess price. And then that dealer takes that squid that he paid $1.30 that everybody's paying in for and can sell it for $1.75 to $2.75. Because I buy it. So it's a tremendous discrepancy there. And I mean, you got a perfect person right here at the table in time, that can explain, its differences.
Ideally, we like to collect the data as a dealer charge, not what they pay physically. In 2 months ago, because I paid the fish because we know save us last year. So I think what we're interested in how was that product that the dealer bought, but then was able to sell either in-state or out-of-state destination, how that changed volume and value as a result of the So in that sense, your question really look at the price that's being sold, not being paid, and we need to kind of keep that consistent with what the dealer is doing.
I think I'd just like to jump in. Ex-vessel pricing is a data set we already have. We already know that. We collected through SafeNess. What we don't have is what happens after that. What happens to the product after it's purchased from fishermen or shellfish growers by dealers. And I think a large part of what Regina is looking to do is to try to peel back that onion a little bit, find out a little bit more about the value of the product after it is sold to the dealer. And is there a way to enhance the value of that product to an in-state market? So we're certainly going to track ex-vessel pricing. We already can do that. I think that's probably going to be part of the DEM annual report because that's a data set we already have. The information that our chief is looking to collect is information that we don't yet have. We think might help to, determine the effectiveness of our program. Are we seeing the needle move? And if folks have a better idea, certainly the experts in the room who do this for a living, as to what they would say is a moving needle, let us know, because I think that's what we're trying to do here, is at the end of all this, show that we got a return on our investment. There was an actual difference in the way our Rhode Island seafood market operated in the wake or in response to a full-blown, year-long seafood marketing campaign, and we're looking to the experts at URI to help us determine that. Lori's already gone. Stu?
I want to say, here I applaud the effort, because I think if you actually do this, you want to solve a major business problem, which is determining if your advertising is effective. I mean, I haven't seen that actually been done or any recipe for that. I think that's a big challenge with this stuff. So if you could do it, this would be pretty amazing. I would think it's going to be difficult because I would imagine you're going to be looking at all right, what have the trends been for the past probably a few years? What's the growth been? And then somehow in there determine if there was some statistical significance if this advertising campaign had any impact, which seems fun. But I think from a retailer perspective, I think a lot of retailers, certainly the bigger ones, are going to have a nice software system that has all the items that they have in there, and there might be some issues with like, okay, well, we sold vaccine masks, but how much of that was Rhode Island, how much was Massachusetts? So they might have to make some sort of assumption there, but I don't think it would be too difficult. I mean, there's probably some smaller old school ones that don't have that, they're not operating on the computer system, and that probably would exclude them. But I think getting this data is not difficult. By bi-weekly, you mean like every 2 weeks, something like that. Yeah, I think it's doable.
No.
That's something related to Laura's point about can we use the first few months depending on how quickly the market rolls out. Is that having a more number of months or years beforehand will at least allow us to see the three underlying trends continuing on in the previous years. Now, having said that, of course, we calculated the full right, all kinds of trends the past year. So that's why I have here, going back, we were talking about should we at least try to ask to get the data from 2019 as at least pre-pandemic. And so any disruption during the 2020.
It's a good year for business was really good.
Right. So that'll be another information. So as long as we have a longer time series, at least we get that trend statistically handled to the extent possible, so we might be able to tease out the effect of the but we should understand that that's a lot about giving us that much data.
Pleasure.
Just quick comments of seeing some sort of baseline data here, depending on how you're interviewing first, maybe a quick QR code, just some summary, the people in the summary that we saw survey now to look the other day that was QR code based. I wouldn't have written down the information. Nice space. Again, you might have but we'll ask them financial incentive to participate. Did you say there is funds to do that? Whether it's
Not directly to participate on the
I mean that might, whether that's the amount that's in the budget, that's always just an extra possibility for folks who are reluctant to the time to participate in competition. That's always welcome.
Let's see, anyone else in the collaborative before I go? We'll do 2 bites, but Ben.
Yeah, fighting for including self-responders in there and participants. But looking at these, obviously, the data you're looking for from seafood dealers, and then we'll participate on that. So anywhere from our selfish dealers, anyways. I'm not sure which farmers would identify as a retail sector, the retail sector or a sales venue. Many of these operations don't have brick and mortar operations. They mostly sell wholesale directly to restaurants. There is a little bit of direct to customer sale, but not all selfish farmers have that ability there to have that extra seafood selfish dealer's license. But just kind of wondering how you envision the shellfish farm participating in this. I think if you can target some language specifically for them. And they're also kind of a strange category in that they're only selling what they grow for the most part, right? So they're not selling steak or shellfish, and they're only really operating with one, maybe 2 species at most.
I think that's very important. Whether it's the retailers or and still like to get information, their sales information before this campaign can benefit them. And with the categorize them as a retail or that's how the analysis goes. In terms of our findings,
We just see if there's any other one. Anyone else in the collaborative who hasn't asked a question yet? We'll set invite, and then, by the way, I was reminded because we have good audio, but the louder you speak, the easier it is for people listening in to hear. Lori?
Other thing that I'm not sure where you're recording, so I don't know. So it has to do with retail. So the answers you're going to get here is new. The answers you get from retailers down here are going to be different than the answers you're going to get from retailers in the city. So, and the socioeconomic impacts of what you might get in the city versus what you might get here. So, the reason why I mention that is that it may affect, I think it won't, it might affect the conclusions because everybody who volunteers are walking down here. I'm just not sure you're going to see the real impacts, because there's more EVM, the real impacts that radius, H supermarket in what you'll see there. And so I'm not sure whether, I guess my recommendation as you sit down and think is that you look to various places in the state to get your retail piece. And I think if you do that, then you can also use the census data and all that garbage coordinate that with the socioeconomic piece of it and help make recommendations in terms of how this marketing campaign can target some of those folks.
It's really a trade-off. And again, probably to sit down and think through this. But one thing that we need to feel for about sampling from different parts of the system is but in order to have that work, we have to have a good number of samples from each of those trials. We can't have one for projects, one for Newport, one for South Kingston, or that three participants for that category. So it's not because we only have one sample from each of those regions. And so if we think that soliciting participants is going to be a challenge, and it may be because we're asking, we're asking a this one thing, and it is an added work potential. So if we can only get 5 participants, then the decision has to be made whether to spread that across the state or should we concentrate on where we think is most promising effective. Say, at least we'll get 5 samples from there as opposed to 1. So it's something that's in our mind, and Santa Claus wish list is that we have enough interest coming in that we can actually pick and choose. Some cluster here, some cluster there. But if not, then we might have to make that decision as for our purpose. What will be the best way to get those cluster areas to get. In other words, if we can get enough impact in projects, then we reasonably assume we can get any impact in our own. If that market can hold, then perhaps we will focus on projects that will be but if we can get enough interest response to this solicitation, I would very much like to have 3 each from certain areas of the state government.
Kathy?
Just one quick point, I know particularly on the demonstrating when it comes to shellfish farmers, there's a significant number of aquaculturists who are also shellfish wholesalers, who are also shellfish resellers, like this guy. So I think there's enough of those out there that you should be able to get a good sample. But the shellfish farmers are definitely make sure that they're also wholesalers and retailers as well.
Maybe come down to how we ask them. That's what data that we receive from our work as Perry, how we more closer to maybe the retail to the market price. others will become only wholesalers in the US. But then again, what usually is changing, right? So the actual level of the price per se is not that critical here. Those who compare more and more, saying one gate one with retail to retail, then it should be
Ken?
Other deals that might be moved by this work might not be sales. And for example, if you look at Scott, which is largely residential country, but if the next year the 99% being for a particular this year, 95% being and 5% sold, again around, that is a change. It might not change the price, it might not change the volume, but it changes in per instance. So I think there's some other things to think about, which are consistent with us, and we did it. Getting a whole lot of needles that could move, we need to think about other things that we can do.
so for the dealers study, I would very much like to have at least recommend from that dealer. So they decide and they also, as you said, you need to get share over to see this, say, campaign, more shares that been not sold. At least for these things. We can say that on the
So a few more hands. I know we have some comments coming in online. I want to afford those folks the opportunity to comment, but I want to make sure we go around the room here first. Other questions, comments?
There's one quick thing. I don't know if this makes it more difficult or complicated. I mean, somewhat to my chagrin, most of the seafood consumption is in restaurants and not through retailers. So, I wonder if there's an opportunity to kind of get at this through restaurants as well. And, you kind of, I think the criteria is just like whatever species they're selling. If people think that it's local, like it might be on the menu as tuna or whatever, but they think I'm in Rhode Island, it's probably local. But, as long as that is satisfied, you might be able to kind of get at this too, like, okay, they think it's local. Did the restaurants after in the way to the can this advertising campaign, do their sales increase some amount that you could potentially try and track to the significance of this campaign?
And that's as long as fish does not legal. So if the fish is caught or down the scene, caught.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying,
process.
what I'm saying is like that may not even matter. Like if the consumer thinks that they're eating local, like they see this ad, local fish, and then restaurant seafood sales increase, and they thought it was, then it just suggests that the campaign was effective in increasing consumption of seafood that people thought was local. Even if it wasn't.
And I thank you, Sue, for that comment, because you guys me the opportunity to emphasize that we've got 9 distinct categories of seafood sale venues, one being restaurants, that you just mentioned. We've talked a lot about retailers and markets, number 5, but there's all kinds of other ways to get your seafood. You can now buy direct, number 1. We've got shellfish farmers, which Ben spoke to. There's vendors at farmers markets, and the list goes on. The point being that maybe the information or the data will be too difficult to assess in certain categories, but might be clearer in others. So we can say, at least with regard to these sectors, Hero and his team were able to see the needle move. We don't necessarily expect to see the needle move all the way up and down across the board. It'd be great if it does, but I think those expectations might be a little high. The point being, if we get a diverse cohort of retailers and sales venues, so it's really everywhere you can go, any way you can get Rhode Island seafood, let's poke into those arenas to see if we're seeing any difference. That was at least the intent of this exercise. And I'm sorry, Perry.
That you believe analysis going on just before and after, or the analysis going on during, so that you can get it with that 5,000.
So, yes, we like to get the data on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, at least monthly, but monthly will be a little bit, something a little crude.
How long will you have the process community get the questions to the next?
So the campaign is scheduled to go for full year, or at least a year. So calendar 2022 is minimum where we left with. There's a bit debate about should we develop data after that, like sort of spill over to the next calendar year, maybe depending on how folks are willing to share their data with us. But yeah, for the calendar 2022 is at least the core time frame that we
If
might
you guys are having some findings, you can, relay that to the team that's deciding on that.
That's a good point, Gary. I hadn't thought of that, but that's a good point, that we can do sort of in-year adjustments to our campaign to reflect the data that we're seeing come in. So at some point, I hadn't thought of that. Thank you. We have at least one comment online. Nicole, do you want to convey that?
Sure. This is from Julie Stomasic. Given that the evaluation is around 3 Rhode Island species, will marketing be targeted to these specific species? If so, it may be beneficial to target marketing to those market channels where these species are available as a pilot. For instance, does marketing strategy A change consumer behavior? This will help inform a longer-term strategy for increasing consumption of all Rhode Island seafood.
Such a great comment, Julie. Thank you so much. Absolutely, the 3 bellwether species, as we're calling them, are going to be the priority for our advertising and promotion. Point being, on a species-specific basis, it's hard to conduct a campaign that touches on every single species landed in Rhode Island. That would just get too diffuse and would be, I think, too confusing to the consumer. So I think what we want, because we land, by the way, 200 species a year. Now, some of them are on the far end of the scale, meaning very small amounts. But we're a very diverse industry in Rhode Island in terms of the number of species landed. So the thinking is, rather than try to do more than we possibly can, i.e. assess the effects on all species, we thought we started out with just summer flounder, for reasons that we can get into. That turned out to be not as great a candidate as it seemed a couple of years ago. So now we've expanded it, at least the proposal is, to include black sea bass and scup as well. They seem to be a good grouping for all kinds of reasons. They kind of run the gambit of high value versus low value, and they're not necessarily all year-round fisheries, but by and large they're year-round fisheries. And we think they're inshore and they're offshore. They really have a lot of aspects to them that kind of enable us to use them as the sort of focal point for our advertising as well as our analysis. But that's not to say that we're not promoting Rhode Island seafood writ large. We are. That's the whole intent of the campaign. It's just that we want to see if we can, again, move the needle. And one way to try and see if we're doing that is to look at 3 species that we think are particularly representative of Rhode Island fisheries. Recognizing, of course, that my good friend Mike McGivney, who has his hands up, and is a shellfisherman. So cohogs, of course, is right up at the top of the list as well, and we'll be emphasizing shellfish as well. So that's a way to...
No, I didn't have my hand up, but I appreciate the thought. Is the Cohog Week and the promotion of that whole event and is part of this?
Absolutely. If I had more time, I would have had a whole slide on Cohog Week as being a continuing part of our campaign. Yes.
And just to Terry's comment to follow up on it, and it's for, I guess, another meeting with the marketing people. It just seems like, we're going to target X amount during the spring, summer months when the tourism come in to try to, when the real volume, people buying is there. And, like you said, kind of target the time of year and what's available. I think it would be very helpful.
Thank you. And I think the advisory committee is going to serve as the forum for helping us, and then through us, help the media firm figure out how best to target the media campaign. Because I've been thinking about things like, well, when are summer flounder prices the lowest? Is that the time of year when you want to promote the summer flounder to try to boost the price? So are there ways that just one example, but it seems to me that you can come up with a really strategic approach to address the range of issues that need to be addressed through a comprehensive marketing campaign. And we're just about to launch, so that means we're just about to start to think about specifically how are we going to do that. We know we've got the wherewithal. Now we have to kind of come up with a plan and then execute that plan.
And there might be a COVID. We saw it at the fairs that we did in Charleston and Bowen. Just amazing with crowds and demand and stuff. So hopefully this will continue and get better into next year, and that'll be another good balance for the industry.
Awesome. So I'm going to open the floor to any comments or questions on any aspect of the presentation, certainly still including Hero's portion, but broadening it beyond that. And I want to invite anybody who's listening in via Zoom to just jump in. You can either raise your hand and Nicole will recognize you, or you can unmute yourself and just say, I have a question or a comment, and we'll entertain that. So the floor is open for any questions or comments. And before I go there, I just want to note that my colleague, Mike Healy, came in late. Mike, hi, so thank you so much for coming. And he whispered in my ear that not only is the release out, but the governor made mention of it today at a press conference. Is that correct, Mike?
That's right.
So,
No turning back.
so we're officially launched, and we've got the governor's attention and support, which we couldn't appreciate, which we deeply appreciate, and away we go. But we're still here today to kind of continue the discussion as need be. Are there any questions or comments? How do people feel? Azure? And then,
back to module 5 that you're outlining, we just wanted to make note that this is related to their education displays. And I remember Fred and I were talking back about potentially like cork tours again. I know Dan has done this kind of off and on, but this might be, this might be a really interesting place where we can leverage like our resident interns. We always are very lucky to have a great cohort over the last year, so we can support that. So that just might be something to keep in mind and chat about it in the advisory group, but we can leverage our students that we often have. Some of whom are kind of obligated to some octopus-related projects, but still would be happy to make something like that happen as part of this grant.
thank you so much, and that's such a great suggestion, and that's exactly what I'm hoping will happen, is that this campaign will spur those kinds of activities or those kinds of ideas, and all of which can be related back to this big surge, if you will, the 2022 surge in trying to promote Rhode Island seafood and really trying to move the needle. Well, that's an overused phrase today, but like, it just seems to be it. Good. Well, Megan, can you speak really loudly because you're in the back?
Yeah, I'll try. So my name is Megan Rapp, Seafood Shoreside in our Vancouver Fish House. We unload commercial fishing vessels and also sell wholesale. So I'm happy to connect in the future. Just 2 points. The first one is, I'm very much support this initiative, and I'm glad to see that DEM has highlighted the 3 bellwether species include stuff like sea bass. And one thing I would like to raise, I know a lot of you started out the session by saying, is this activist depends on the availability of these species, or of species in general. I don't know if anybody on this body or in this room is aware that the Midland Fisheries Management Council, which Rhode Island does not have a seat on, is planning in December to reallocate commercial with stuff and live sea bass quota to recreational, which means we would lose quota right off the bat, and then we would have further quota reductions because of the resulting scientific management uncertainty with that. That's potentially something for folks in the seafood industry here in the state to raise if they need a second, local show. And then the other idea that I did have, particularly with this initiative, is I know that Rhode Island has always been looking to promote stuff, consumer stuff. I think one way to do that is actually just through semantics. Stuff looks like a snapper. It's basically the snapper family. If you call it stuff, aka northern snapper, I think we would actually get a lot of consumer response on that.
Rhode Island snapper?
I would say no, because if you were able to market it in, a larger, you get more, I think, street credit traction. Like a northern snapper, I know it's like in New York, some people are trying to call them Montauk sea green, but then that's not going to create like awareness, consumer awareness. You know what I mean? Like if people go everywhere and see it, northern snapper, then they have a place to see that on the movie, like in the big stuff. I think people would do that. Like stuff is a smaller fish, so it doesn't always come out to play. But people in this country, for some reason, will eat whole snapper you how long. I think you're running into, like red tape or just delays, but I think that that's something that this group could actually do. And overnight, I think it's a really will change in terms of something that maybe people aren't too interested in. It's something that they're like, oh, wait, what? Also believe that. Silver, there you go. Did you get an answer on that? There you go. There you go. I think as long as you say stuff, yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's not you're not only calling it something like.
Maybe you take the project in combination, what we're doing now, we have fixed over the last few years, because it's well received, work with already, and, frankly, I think it's absolutely imperative. But compared from we went to USDA, they offered a myriad of different names from silver green to, silver snapper, you name it, golden green, I think that's what they call it on Long Island. Some of those vessels that restaurants, they call it golden green or golden silver. So there's a few names USDA will not allow. They won't allow. So,
What's the reason?
I don't know. I know, I'll look into it with David and find out what we did here for them. And they said these are the assigned black names, and we're not changing. You have to give it us a compelling reason to change it. What you say, it's great. So in essence, just go, we just have to point where that's not just all whatever they want.
We gotta be honest with what you serve.
I think part of the problem is with seafood fish, especially, is FDA has something about we get people who don't buy their fish as to exactly what they are. Because there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of, selling fish on something that's simply not. So it may not be the best time to go and say, hey, you can call this something else because it's a tell you that right now. That's the problem that they're having. Not a lot enough, So
So you're not just going to take in a couple thousand pounds of cut as so
yeah, so the additional education is a problem with you. It's not really trying to ask for collaboration. At least that's what I'm doing.
once again, it's a case of, maybe we come up with a rational way of making this better instead of just saying we can't do it.
I'm just saying it's a difficult task right now, that's all.
You've proven that we can do something.
We can.
In the last year.
So I just want to note that Catherine Farrington, who's doing her best to go like this at home, is having a difficult time hearing the discussion. So I try to talk as loudly as I can, because I've learned over time there's nothing more frustrating than not being able to hear what people are saying. So please speak up as loudly as you can. Ben?
Yeah. So.
Thanks, Mom.
You're welcome, Catherine.
So you said earlier that the media buys are going to be focused to reach so many adults, and kind of based on the talk about branding and things like that. Would it make sense to look at actually trying to target a younger demographic, in that you could kind of indoctrinate them, get them used to some of these newer species, so that they would grow up to be future consumers. I know that the time frame for this brand is rather short, just a year, but it would seem prudent to begin to train the next generation of consumers, and also just to, as a parent of a toddler, they're picky eaters, right? So if you can somehow figure out how to market these species to families, family-friendly meals, I think that might have some benefit.
and suggest that to our whoever we get on board to develop the plan. Thanks. Good comment. Stu?
Yeah, I was just curious about that, about the selection process, or how you thinking about that in terms of the agency or the consultant that's supposed to go with this.
Yep. So what we'll do is, because we have to, is we go to a master price agreement list for contractual services. That's how all state agencies have to conduct their business. There are media firms on the list. To use an example, we've used the RDW group in the past. They provided services, contractual upon request, based on their availability from the master price agreement list. So what we're going to do in-house at DEM is take our needs for these services, put them out there, and contact firms that are on the list, and then hopefully get a positive response from one or more, and look to hire the best that we possibly can. The advantage of going that route is it takes forever to go out to bid and go through a whole bidding process. So the way the state has set up the process to make it more streamlined is to already have firms approved to be able to provide those contractual services. And so it enables us to be able to work with a defined universe of potential service providers.
And are they mainly firms that are like just supposed to specialize in the media buys, or are they meant to kind of develop the approach and the materials as well, and kind of the message?
I think it can be the whole package, and I'm so glad Mike raised his hand because I was going to go to you anyway. Mike.
Hey, Mike.
So, this one, I served on the committee to the state committee that selected the firms that went into this as the price agreement NDA. And I think our challenge was actually picking one, because there's really 10 firms on the list. They offer a whole range of services. Some are smaller, but there are several that are full service, marketing communications companies, that handle big time accounts like the airports, local airports, big time budgets. So I don't think it would be a question of quality. It would really come down to which one we feel like is the best fit for us. And I can also say, anecdotally, that using the last experience that we had with RW, for example, was very positive. They were very responsive. Like it was kind of a micro targeted social campaign. So I think we'll be kind of spoiled for choice almost in terms of
And is the process like that they pitch, like you give them like, okay, this is what we're trying to do, and then they pitch, and you pick, or is it just like?
Yeah, so basically, that's exactly what happened. So we explained to them, here's what we want to do. Unfortunately, Bob has so much of his work down in grant application and now business plan. And so it will be, okay, here's what we want to do. Here's our budget. Come up with a couple of approaches for us to consider. And so, usually, like, there's a lot of the metric stuff that I don't understand anymore, or like know about, but they can be really, really granular on reaching audiences. But yeah, that's basically it. They pitch a couple of ideas. As a marketing guy, you always like to pitch 3 ideas, to your client. You like to pitch, the one you like, the one that isn't so good, and then the one that they'll choose. So we'll be mindful of what they're pitching to us. But it's definitely something that we're working on with Bob, and this group, because it's going to be a really great budget for us to pursue.
Thank you. Mike.
Yeah, being greedy here, we got $300,000, which is wonderful given what we've had in the past. Given there was a 27%, I think the number was, reduction in production last year because of COVID. Is there any chance of the COVID money that's being talked about now being numbered in that maybe you give us a little more of a robust or?
Well, you are greedy. The short answer is I don't know of any federal funding, COVID-related, specifically available to augment this program. But I certainly will, I'm sure Jason will acknowledge that we'll keep that in mind, and it probably speaks more to future.
As much as to the next year.
Because everyone needs to keep in mind, this is our one shot to really get a bang for a buck. And the hope and expectation is that we're going to really be able to make a difference such that the powers that be, whether it be at the state level, those holding the strings on the state coffers, or federal funders would see fit to continue this program at the same or even a higher rate because of the return that we're showing, that this investment is bringing back, the value and return that we expect that it will. So it's important to get this right, and I just want to say, as I sense that we're maybe rounding up here on this discussion, and I can't thank you enough. It's been so helpful to me. To me, what we're pitching is my reflection of what I've heard from all of you over the years, and I can't say that emphatically enough. It's not something that we just created in thin air. It was all we heard over the years was about, if you want to make a difference, you've got to stimulate the local market. You've got to incentivize the consumers, get them aware, get them increase demand, because if you build a field, they will come. So the idea here is to do just that, is to really focus on the Rhode Island seafood in Rhode Island. And that may sound sort of like obvious, but the more I thought about it, if we could really focus the campaign on Rhode Island seafood in Rhode Island, I think we stand to make a difference. And if I were to do a little chart, it would be, here's all the seafood that comes into the state, here's the seafood that flows out, and it has significant value in flowing out. Here's the seafood that stays in the state, it has value, perhaps not as much as that which flows out. Is there a way, and this is a business decision that we can't make, but we might help invigorate, is there a way to redirect some of the out-of-state, the Rhode Island seafood that's going out-of-state, in-state, and increase the value in so doing? And that's the whole point of this exercise, is to see if that pitch can work. And if we see more people going to the restaurants that Kevin oversees and saying, I want Rhode Island seafood. I mean, going to the restaurants in Newport and opening the menu and seeing all the fresh local Rhode Island seafood listed on the one side and the imported seafood on the right, I have this gut feeling that the Rhode Island seafood on the left is going to be the winner. So the hope and expectation is that, the rising tide will lift all boats. Anyone selling Rhode Island seafood in Rhode Island stands to benefit from this program. Any Rhode Island consumers who prefer and seek to access Rhode Island seafood in Rhode Island stand to benefit, and the entire food system, the state as a whole, stands to benefit by having kind of helped develop a more secure local food system, less reliant on the out-of-state supply chains, which we all saw firsthand broke down in the wake of COVID, or as a result of COVID. So there's a lot of benefits to be derived from this initiative, and the hope is that we can achieve them, and with Heroes assistance, we might actually be able to quantifiably measure those differences, and that's the point of his evaluation study. So with that, and looking at the time and ensuring that we're going to be out of here within 16 minutes or less, I just want to note that the last agenda, first of all, are there any other questions or comments on the program? If there are follow-up, and I'm going to get to you in a second, thank you for raising your hand. If there are follow-up questions that we don't get to today, I'm readily available. I have my contact information up on one of the last slides. I think you all know how to reach me. Easy to find, robert.ballou@dem.ri.gov. Please let me know, your thoughts on how we can tailor this program to best meet the needs and interests of the Rhode Island commercial fishing and shellfish growing community, seafood community. I didn't say that very well, I'm sorry. How we can meet all the relevant interests as best as we can. I saw two more hands. I'll get to them, and then we'll move on to the next agenda. I'm sorry, I don't recognize you. I probably know you guys. Natalie, hi, Natalie.
My understanding already seafood was seafood on the supply chain. It really hasn't hit the consumers yet. In
I'm sorry, you can say that again a little more loudly.
The Rhode Island seafood label.
Yes.
My understanding promotes Rhode Island seafood along the supply chain, but it doesn't hit consumers. Is it going to be pushed to promote seafood on the consumer level? Like, are you going to put the label in front of consumers?
Yes. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that is the common thread or theme, if you will, is that Rhode Island seafood logo. That rest assured, that's what you want to look for to build your find the right product. Dr. Rice, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick comment. I think if this effort is successful, which I hope it is, we'll get rid of some of the things that I kind of recognize. One of the things I really like to do, very anecdotally, is to buy a whole mess of lobsters and send them to my kids in California. And there are some retailers around here that I know perfectly well are selling the main lobsters that I know that are out from here. So if we could be successful and wipe that out, that would be great.
Thank you. Thank you all. So my last agenda item, actually we have two more agenda items, and I'm going to get to you in a second. Actually, the item 6 is one that I don't have fully matured yet, it's up for discussion. So I'm going to let you know that I plan to conduct a workshop in December. So in 2 or 3 weeks, I'll schedule it. And the purpose of the workshop will be to review and consider changes to the existing regulations that govern the Rhode Island Seafood logo. And I did distribute them as part of the meeting materials. Without getting into too much detail today, because I'm not frankly prepared in the sense of having a draft ready to present and discuss. But my sense is that these regulations, while they were extremely well intended and in many ways well developed and good at the time, which was I think about 10 years ago, I think they're ripe for modification. And I think in particular, we built into the regulations too much bureaucracy, too much, having to authorize use of the brand. That's a crazy thing. We never even got to that point. I think we did a little bit, Dan, and Dan knows about this well. We did some approvals of use of the brand, but I think what we really want to do, and this is a reflection on the way Ken and the Division of Agriculture have used some of their labeling on the ag side, is to use the label as essentially an all-encompassing ambassador of Rhode Island seafood, as a promotional tool, not a regulatory tool. We already have regulations in place, and I believe they fall under our food safety and public health statutes and regulations that prohibit the mislabeling of food products. So you have to be honest about what you're selling. That's already the case. We don't necessarily need to over-regulate that aspect of this program. So I have some thoughts, certainly conceptual thoughts, and ones that I'd like to see if we can take and apply to the regulations. I think we could potentially do it in relatively short order. We wouldn't even necessarily need to go through a whole lengthy public hearing process unless folks think we should. So the purpose of the workshop that I plan to host in 2 or 3 weeks is to take a look at these regulations, offer some suggested modifications, see how well they resonate, and to the extent that I get 2 or 3 thumbs up, we can move forward to quickly modify them to make sure that the logo, which we really want to continue to use as the heart of the program, continues to serve in the way that I think we want it to serve. So I don't really have much else that I want to engage in on that issue today, because I just didn't get to the place where I wanted to be, which is a sort of draft set of regulatory proposals, but I will have that ready to go in 2 or 3 weeks. Okay. So with that, I'm going to switch to our final agenda item, which is updates and announcements, and I think both fall under Azure. So
30-second update.
Perfect, go for it.
I just wanted to share that the Rhode Island Food Policy Council, which is a state-run food equity access advocacy organization, has a seafood-related working group, and we're all welcome to attend the next December, January meeting. And just that the key item that we hope to achieve is to create a legislative roundtable in 2022 that has content around supporting the seafood sector, maybe some panelists, things like meeting announcements. And the last is a bit premature, is that we're planning a health week in April. So maybe it is successive marketing summary. So we really don't have anything right.
Okay.
That's it.
Well, thank you. And perfect segue to our last agenda item, which is the next meeting, which right now is scheduled for February. That would maintain our quarterly schedule. So unless folks have an urgent need to meet prior to that, stay tuned for an announcement for our next meeting, which will be in February. We will, in the meantime, get the advisory committee up and running. As you can see, we already have a core group. I welcome additional participants. We'll put out notices about those meetings and invite all who are interested in participating. And with that, I think I've achieved everything that I had hoped to achieve. I hope this meeting was helpful to all of you. I look forward to staying in close touch with you. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day. We're adjourned.
Thank you.